The day humanity arrived at the Galactic Council, the universe seemed to hold its breath. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly around them, dotted with stars that twinkled like distant lanterns. But today, those stars were overshadowed by something far more significant: a fleet of ships, battered and worn, emerging from the depths of hyperspace. These ships belonged to Earth, and they carried stories of war, loss, and survival etched into their scorched hulls. At the forefront of this fleet was a vessel named the Eclipse. It wasn't the largest ship in the Armada, but it was one of the most recognizable. Its surface bore the scars of countless battles, burn marks from plasma weapons, dents from debris, and streaks of crimson that looked almost like dried blood. Standing on the bridge of the Eclipse was Captain Ryan Carter, a man whose face told a story of its own. His eyes were sharp but tired, his jawline defined by years of hard decisions. Beside him stood Lieutenant Elena Vega, her posture rigid, as she monitored the controls. Her hands moved swiftly over the console, ensuring everything functioned properly as they approached their destination. The Galactic Council's orbital station loomed ahead, a massive structure made of shimmering metal and glowing panels. It floated silently against the backdrop of space, an imposing symbol of interstellar diplomacy. To many species in the galaxy, it represented unity and progress. For humanity, however, it felt like uncharted territory, a place where judgment awaited. Ryan glanced at Elena, his expression unreadable. "Are we ready?" he asked quietly, his voice steady, despite the tension in the air. "As ready as we'll ever be," she replied without looking up. Her tone carried a hint of nervousness, though she tried to mask it with professionalism. The crew of the Eclipse worked tirelessly around them, checking systems, running diagnostics, and preparing for what lay ahead. Some whispered among themselves, speculating about how the Council would react to their arrival. Others remained silent, lost in thought or prayer. Humanity's journey here hadn't been easy, and no one knew what kind of reception awaited them. As the fleet docked with the station, the atmosphere aboard the Eclipse grew heavier. Ryan stepped away from the main console and walked toward the viewport. Outside, the other ships of the fleet lined up neatly, their damaged exteriors stark reminders of the battles they'd fought. Beyond them, alien vessels hovered nearby, their designs unfamiliar and strange. Some were sleek and streamlined, while others appeared bulky and mechanical. Each ship represented a different race within the Galactic Council, and each had come to witness humanity's arrival. "They're watching us," Elena said, joining Ryan at the viewport. She crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on the alien ships surrounding them. "Let them watch," Ryan replied, his voice firm. "We didn't come here to hide." Elena nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling of unease creeping into her chest. She had read reports about the Galactic Council before leaving Earth. They were supposed to be wise, fair, and just, yet there was something intimidating about their presence, something that made her question whether they could truly understand humanity's plight. A few moments later, Ambassador Daniel Hayes entered the bridge. He was a tall man with graying hair and a calm demeanor, though his eyes betrayed the strain of recent events. As humanity's representative to the Council, he carried the weight of billions on his shoulders. Today his role was critical. He would speak for Earth and plead their case before the assembled races. "How does it look out there?" Daniel asked, nodding toward the viewport. "Not great," Ryan admitted. "They're staring at us like we're some kind of threat." Daniel sighed and adjusted his suit. "Maybe we are," he said softly. "At least, that's how they'll see us when they hear our story." Elena frowned. "Is that why we're here? To explain ourselves?" "In part," Daniel replied. "But mostly we're here because we have nowhere else to turn. If the Council doesn't help us, humanity might not survive." The gravity of his words hung in the air, silencing everyone on the bridge. For the past several months, Earth's colonies had been under attack by an unknown enemy known only as the Swarm. No one knew where they had come from or why they targeted humanity. But their methods were brutal and relentless. Entire planets had been reduced to ash, their populations wiped out in mere hours. Humanity had fought back with every resource available, but the cost had been devastating. Now, as the survivors gathered aboard these ships, they hoped the Council would offer aid, or at least sanctuary, but Ryan couldn't ignore the possibility that they might refuse. After all, humanity was still new to the galactic stage, viewed by many as reckless and unpredictable. When the docking clamps secured the Eclipse to the station, the crew prepared to disembark. Ryan led the way, followed closely by Elena and Daniel. As they stepped onto the platform connecting their ship to the station, they were greeted by a delegation of aliens. Their forms varied wildly. One was tall and slender with translucent skin, another resembled a hulking beast covered in fur, and yet another floated above the ground, its body composed of shifting energy. Counselor Zerkthal, the leader of the delegation, stepped forward. He was a serpentine creature with iridescent scales that shimmered in the light. His slit-like eyes scanned the humans before him, lingering briefly on the bloodstains visible on their uniforms. "You bring destruction wherever you go," he said, his voice cold and sibilant. Ryan clenched his fists but kept his composure. "We bring survival," he countered. "And if you don't listen to us, your worlds may face the same fate as ours." Zerkthal tilted his head slightly, intrigued by Ryan's boldness. "Very well," he said after a pause. "You will have your chance to speak, but know this: if your actions endanger the Council, you will answer for it." With that, the delegation turned and began leading the humans deeper into the station. As they walked, Elena glanced at Ryan, her expression uneasy. "He's not wrong," she murmured. "About bringing destruction, I mean." Ryan shook his head. "It's not destruction we brought, it's proof. Proof that there's something out there willing to wipe us off the map. And if we don't stop it, it won't stop with us." Helena wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered in her mind. The Council's reaction so far hadn't been encouraging, and she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's arrival might have been a mistake. Still, she pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the task ahead. Whatever happened next, they couldn't afford to fail. The corridors of the station were wide and brightly lit, filled with activity as representatives from various races moved about. Some cast curious glances at the humans while others ignored them entirely. The air smelled faintly metallic, tinged with an unfamiliar scent that made Elena wrinkle her nose. Finally, they reached the council chamber, a massive room dominated by a circular table surrounded by floating platforms. Holographic displays hovered above the table, showing maps, data streams, and images of distant worlds. At the center of the room stood a raised platform where humanity's delegation would present their case. As Ryan, Elena, and Daniel took their positions, the council members filed in, taking their seats on the platforms. Their forms ranged from humanoid to utterly alien, each radiating an aura of authority. When everyone was settled, Counselor Zerkthal addressed the assembly. "Today, we gather to hear the plea of a young species," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "A species accused of provoking conflict and spreading chaos across the stars. Let them speak and let us decide their fate." Daniel stepped forward, his heart pounding, but his expression resolute. This was humanity's moment to make their case, to convince the council that they deserved help rather than condemnation. As he opened his mouth to speak, Ryan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've got this," Ryan whispered. Daniel nodded, drawing a deep breath. Then, with steady determination, he began to tell humanity's story. Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood before the Galactic Council, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. The council chamber was silent except for the faint hum of technology and the occasional rustle as alien representatives shifted in their seats. All eyes were on Daniel, and he knew this was humanity's chance to explain themselves. He glanced briefly at Ryan Carter and Elena Vega, who stood a few steps behind him, their expressions tense but supportive. This wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that humanity deserved a place among the stars. "Honorable members of the council," Daniel began, his tone respectful but firm. "We have come here not to ask for charity, but for understanding. Humanity has faced an enemy unlike any other, an enemy that does not negotiate, does not surrender, and shows no mercy. He paused, letting his words sink in. Then, with a wave of his hand, holographic projections appeared above the council table. Images of devastated planets filled the air, smoldering ruins where cities once stood, barren wastelands where forests had thrived, and empty skies where life had flourished. The destruction was undeniable, a grim testament to the horrors humanity had endured. "This is what remains of our colonies," Daniel continued, pointing to one image after another. The swarm came without warning, attacking without provocation. They destroyed everything in their path, homes, families, entire worlds. We fought back because we had no choice, but even now they pursue us relentlessly. The council members exchanged glances, some leaning forward with interest while others remained impassive. Councillor Zerkthal, the serpentine leader of the delegation, narrowed his slit-like eyes. "You claim this enemy attacked unprovoked," he said, his voice cold and measured. "Yet your ships bear the marks of war. Your actions suggest otherwise." Daniel clenched his jaw but kept his composure. "Our ships are damaged because we defended ourselves. If we had done nothing, we would already be extinct." Elena watched the exchange carefully, her sharp eyes scanning the room. She noticed subtle reactions among the council members. Some seemed skeptical, while others appeared troubled by the evidence. But there was something else too, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. A few of the representatives avoided, looking directly at the holograms, their body language betraying discomfort or guilt. Ryan leaned closer to Elena and whispered, "Do you see that? Something's off." She nodded slightly. "Yeah, it's like they know more than they're letting on." Before either of them could say more, another counselor spoke up. This one was a floating entity composed of shimmering energy, its voice resonating like a chorus of whispers. "Your species is young," it said. "Young and reckless. You expand into the galaxy without regard for the consequences. Perhaps this swarm is merely a reaction to your intrusion." The accusation stung, but Daniel didn't flinch. "With all due respect, Counselor, we did not provoke this conflict. The swarm targeted us first, and we still don't know why. What we do know is that they will not stop with us. If we fall, others may follow." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, and several counselors leaned toward each other, discussing Daniel's words in hushed tones. Zerkthal raised a clawed hand to silence them before addressing Daniel again. "You speak of survival," he said. "But survival often comes at a cost. Tell me, Ambassador, how many lives have been lost in your fight against this enemy? How much destruction have you caused in your efforts to defend yourselves?" Daniel hesitated, knowing the answer wouldn't reflect well on humanity. "Too many," he admitted finally. "But we didn't start this war. We're trying to end it." The admission seemed to deepen the skepticism in the room. Some counselors exchanged uneasy looks, while others shook their heads disapprovingly. Elena felt a knot tighten in her stomach. They weren't winning them over, not yet. After the presentation ended, the council adjourned for deliberation, leaving humanity's delegation to wait anxiously in a nearby chamber. The mood was somber as Ryan, Elena, and Daniel sat together, replaying the session in their minds. "They're not convinced," Daniel said, rubbing his temples. "They think we're dangerous." "Maybe we are," Ryan replied bluntly. "But does that mean we deserve to die? Does it mean everyone back home deserves to die?" "No," Elena interjected firmly. "It doesn't. But we need more than just words to change their minds. We need proof. The kind of proof they can't ignore." Her comment sparked an idea in Ryan's mind. He stood abruptly, pacing back and forth as he thought aloud. "What if we show them what we've found? That data from the swarm ship. It might give us answers, maybe even expose someone helping them." Elena frowned. "Are you sure? If we accuse one of the council races, we could make things worse." "I'm not accusing anyone," Ryan said. "Not yet. But if we sit here doing nothing, we're finished anyway. At least this way, we have a shot." Daniel considered the suggestion, weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance. Let's review the data and see what we're working with." Back aboard the Eclipse, the three of them gathered in the ship's briefing room. On the central display, fragments of information recovered from the destroyed swarm vessel flickered to life. The data was chaotic and incomplete, but one detail stood out: a set of coordinates leading to what appeared to be the swarm's homeworld. "That's impressive," Elena said, studying the numbers. "If we can confirm these coordinates, we might actually find their origin point." "And then what?" Ryan asked. "Blow it up?" "Not necessarily," Daniel replied. "But having this knowledge gives us leverage. If we share it with the Council, they'll have to take us seriously." As they continued analyzing the data, another discovery caught their attention: a signal signature embedded within the swarm's communications. It matched technology used by one of the Council races. Elena stared at the screen, her heart sinking. This can't be right." "What is it?" Ryan asked, moving closer. "It's a Vrin signal," she said quietly. "One of the Council races." The revelation hit them like a punch to the gut. The Vrin were known for their diplomatic prowess and advanced technology. Accusing them of aiding the swarm would be explosive and potentially catastrophic. Daniel sank into a chair, his face pale. "If we bring this to the Council, it'll tear them apart. And if we're wrong—" "We're not wrong," Ryan said firmly. "This is too specific to be a coincidence. Someone's helping the swarm, and it's the Vrin." Elena nodded slowly. "Agreed. But how do we use this without blowing everything up?" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "We tread carefully. For now, we keep this between us. If we play our cards right, we might be able to turn this to our advantage." As they wrapped up the meeting, tension lingered in the air. They had uncovered a potential game-changer, but it came with enormous risks. Trust within the Council was fragile, and accusing one of its own could shatter it completely. Later that evening, Elena found herself alone on the bridge of the Eclipse, staring out at the vast expanse of space. The Council station loomed nearby, its lights twinkling like distant stars. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a tightrope, balancing between hope and disaster. Ryan joined her a few minutes later, leaning against the railing beside her. "You okay?" he asked gently. "I don't know," she admitted. "I keep thinking about what happens next. What if we're wrong? Or worse, what if we're right and the Council turns on us anyway?" Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure it out. We always do." Elena managed a small smile. "Yeah, I guess that's what makes us human, huh?" Ryan chuckled softly. "Something like that." For a moment they stood in silence, watching the endless void stretch before them. Whatever lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain: they weren't giving up. Not now, not ever. The next morning, the mood aboard the Eclipse was tense. Ryan Carter and Elena Vega had spent most of the night reviewing the data they'd recovered from the swarm ship. The more they studied it, the clearer it became that the Vrin, a Council race known for their sleek silver ships and advanced technology, were somehow involved with the swarm. But proving it wouldn't be easy. The evidence was fragile, fragmented, and open to interpretation. If they accused the Vrin without solid proof, humanity could lose whatever slim chance they had of gaining the Council's support. Ambassador Daniel Hayes called a meeting in the briefing room to discuss their options. He looked exhausted, his face lined with worry, but his voice remained steady as he addressed Ryan and Elena. "We need to decide how to handle this," he said. "If we expose the Vrin's connection to the swarm, it could turn the Council against them, or against us." Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "We don't have a choice," he said firmly. "If the Vrin are helping the swarm, the Council needs to know. Otherwise, we're fighting a war with our hands tied behind our backs." Elena nodded, though her expression was uneasy. "I agree, but timing is everything. If we bring this up too soon, they might dismiss it as desperation. We need to wait for the right moment." Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. "And what if there isn't a right moment? What if we run out of time?" The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered. They all knew the risks, but none of them had a better plan. For now, They decided to keep the discovery between the three of them and monitor the Council's reactions closely. Later that day, humanity's delegation returned to the Council chamber for a follow-up session. The atmosphere was colder than before, with many counselors openly hostile toward Daniel and his team. Counselor Zerkthal, the Serpentine leader, wasted no time pressing his accusations. "You claim innocence, Ambassador," he hissed, his slit-like eyes gleaming, "yet your actions speak otherwise. Your species has brought violence to the stars, disrupting the balance we have worked so hard to maintain." Daniel stood tall, refusing to back down. "Violence found us first," he replied. "We didn't ask for this war, but we won't stand by and let it destroy us. If you refuse to help us, then tell us now, and we'll leave." His words caused a stir among the counselors. Some whispered among themselves, while others glared at Daniel with suspicion. Elena watched closely, trying to gauge their reactions. She noticed one counselor in particular, the Vryn representative, sitting quietly at the far end of the table. His elongated head tilted slightly, his metallic skin reflecting the chamber's light. Something about him seemed off. After the session ended, Ryan approached Daniel as they walked back to the eclipse. "Did you see the way the Vryn was acting?" he asked in a low voice. "He barely said anything, but I could feel him watching us the whole time." Daniel nodded grimly. "I saw it too. It's like he's waiting for something or someone to make a move." Elena joined them, her arms crossed. "Maybe he's worried we'll figure out what they've been doing," she suggested. "If the Vryn are backing the swarm, they must know we're onto them." Ryan frowned. "Then we need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more dangerous this gets." That evening, tensions aboard the Eclipse reached a breaking point. Rumors about the Council's hostility had spread among the crew, and morale was plummeting. Some crew members believed humanity should abandon diplomacy altogether and focus on fighting the swarm alone. Others argued that exposing the Vryn's involvement would only make things worse. In the mess hall, two crewmen exchanged heated words. "Why are we even here?" one of them demanded, slamming his fist on the table. "They don't care about us, all they see is trouble." "We can't just give up," another countered. "If we walk away, we're dead. Is that what you want?" Ryan stepped into the room, his presence silencing the argument. "Enough," he said firmly. "Fighting each other isn't going to help. We're here because we don't have another option, so either pull yourselves together or get off my ship." The crewmen muttered apologies and returned to their meals, but the tension remained palpable. Elena joined Ryan a few minutes later, her expression troubled. "They're scared," she said softly. "And they have every reason to be. But fear doesn't win wars." "No," Ryan agreed. "But it can start them. That's why we need to stay focused. One wrong move and this whole thing falls apart." Back in the briefing room, Daniel reviewed the plan one last time. "Tomorrow we present the coordinates of the swarm's homeworld," he said. "If we play it right, we can use that to shift the Council's attention away from us and onto the real threat." "What about the Vryn?" Elena asked. "Do we mention them?" "Not yet," Daniel replied. "We'll hold on to that until we absolutely have to. Right now our priority is survival, not revenge." The next morning, the Council chamber buzzed with anticipation as humanity's delegation took their positions once again. This time, Daniel brought up the holographic display of the swarm's homeworld coordinates. The image showed a distant star system surrounded by swirling nebulae, its planets shrouded in mystery. "This is where the swarm originates," Daniel announced, his voice clear and commanding. "We believe targeting their homeworld could end the war, but we can't do it alone. We need your help." The counselors exchanged skeptical glances, some leaning closer to examine the data. Counselor Zerkthal tilted his head, his tone dripping with doubt. "And how do you propose we reach this location? Do you expect us to send our fleets into unknown territory based on your word alone?" "It's not just our word," Daniel countered. "This information came directly from a swarm vessel we destroyed. It's real, and it's our best chance to stop them." Before anyone could respond, the Vryn representative spoke up for the first time. His voice was smooth and melodic, almost hypnotic. Such bold claims require evidence, he said, his glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. Perhaps you would allow us to verify these coordinates ourselves? Daniel hesitated, sensing a trap, but unable to refuse. Of course, he said carefully. We welcome any assistance you can provide. As the session continued, Ryan noticed subtle changes in the council's behavior. Some counselors seemed intrigued by the possibility of ending the war, while others appeared increasingly agitated. The Vryn representative, in particular, kept glancing at the data with an unreadable expression. Later, back aboard the Eclipse, Ryan voiced his concerns to Elena. There's something about those coordinates, he said. What if the Vryn already know where they lead? What if they're using this as a distraction? Elena frowned. You think they're stalling? It's possible, Ryan admitted. Either way, we need to stay ahead of them. If they're planning something, we can't afford to be caught off guard. That night, Elena stayed up late in the communications room, running additional scans on the swarm data. As she sifted through the fragments, she stumbled upon something new, a hidden message buried deep within the code. It was short and cryptic, but unmistakably directed at the Vryn. Her heart raced as she read the translation aloud to herself. Prepare for Phase 2. Phase 2? What did that mean? Elena quickly relayed the discovery to Ryan and Daniel, who rushed to the room to see it for themselves. This confirms it, Ryan said, his jaw tightening. The Vryn aren't just helping the swarm. They're orchestrating the attacks. Daniel sank into a chair, his face pale. If the council finds out about this, they will. Ryan interrupted. Because we're going to tell them. Tomorrow we expose everything, the coordinates, the signal, the message. If the Vryn try to deny it, we'll call their bluff. Elena nodded, determination replacing her earlier unease. It's risky, but it's our only shot. Let's hope the council listens. As the trio prepared for the confrontation ahead, the weight of their decision settled over them. They were about to gamble everything on a single move, knowing full well it could either save humanity or doom it forever. Outside the ship's viewport, the stars twinkled silently, indifferent to the drama unfolding within the council station. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. Humanity's fate rested on the edge of a knife, and the slightest misstep could send them tumbling into oblivion. The morning arrived with a sense of foreboding. Ryan Carter, Elena Vega, and Ambassador Daniel Hayes gathered on the bridge of the Eclipse, preparing for what would be humanity's most critical moment before the Galactic Council. The plan was risky. Exposing the Vryn's involvement with the swarm could unite the council against a common enemy or fracture it completely. Either way, there was no turning back now. As they walked toward the council chamber, Ryan noticed something unusual. The station's corridors, usually bustling with activity, were eerily quiet. Alien representatives who had previously lingered outside the chamber were nowhere to be seen. Even the guards stationed at key points seemed fewer in number. Something feels off, Ryan muttered, glancing around. Elena nodded, her hand instinctively resting on the blaster at her side. Yeah, too quiet. Daniel tried to shake off the unease, but couldn't ignore the tension building in his chest. Let's focus on the task at hand, he said firmly. We'll deal with whatever comes next when it happens. When they entered the council chamber, the atmosphere was different. Several counselors sat stiffly in their seats, their expressions unreadable. Others whispered among themselves, casting uneasy glances at the Vryn representative, who remained eerily calm. Counselor Zerkthal, the Serpentine leader, watched them approach with cold, calculating eyes. You're late, he hissed. We're here, Daniel replied evenly, taking his place at the center of the room, and we have important information to share. Before Daniel could begin, alarms blared throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed, bathing the chamber in an ominous glow. A voice crackled over the intercom system, speaking in a language none of the humans understood. Panic spread quickly as alien representatives scrambled to their feet, some fleeing the room while others activated protective shields. What's happening? Elena demanded, gripping her weapon tightly. Ryan scanned, the chaos, his instincts kicking in. We're under attack. Moments later, the station shook violently as explosions rocked its outer hull. Through the chamber's viewport, they saw flashes of light as ships engaged in battle. Among them were sleek insectoid vessels, the Swarm. They found us, Ryan growled, his jaw tightening. The Vryn representative stood abruptly, his metallic skin shimmering unnaturally, his glowing eyes locked onto Daniel, and for the first time his calm demeanor cracked. You led them here, he accused, his melodic voice laced with venom. Daniel raised his hands defensively. That's not true. We didn't know they were coming. But the damage was done. Several counselors turned accusing gazes toward humanity, their distrust boiling over into outright hostility. Zerkthal slithered forward, his tail swaying menacingly. Your presence has brought destruction. Once again, he spat. Elena stepped forward, her voice sharp. If you'd listened to us earlier, you'd know the truth. The Vryn are working with the Swarm. They've been helping them all along. Gasps rippled through the chamber as every eye turned to the Vryn representative. For a brief moment, he looked startled, but then his expression hardened. Without another word, he activated a device on his wrist, enveloping himself in a shimmering energy field. In a flash, he vanished, leaving behind only silence. He's running, Ryan said, already moving toward the door. We need to stop him. Elena followed close behind, her mind racing. Why now? Why reveal himself like this? Because he knows we're on to him, Ryan replied grimly. And if he escapes, we lose our chance to expose the truth. Back in the chamber, Daniel worked to regain control of the situation. Listen to me, he shouted over the chaos. The Vryn betrayed you. They've been guiding the Swarm to destroy us and possibly you next. Some counselors hesitated, torn between fear and suspicion. Others ignored him entirely, focusing instead on evacuating the station. Zerkthal, however, remained rooted in place, his slit-like eyes narrowing thoughtfully. How can we trust anything you say? He asked coldly. You don't have to. Trust us, Daniel countered. Look at the evidence, the signal we found, it matches Vryn technology, and now their representative has fled. Does that sound innocent to you? Zerkthal considered this for a moment before issuing orders to nearby guards. Seal the station. No one leaves without my authorization. Meanwhile, Ryan and Elena raced through the corridors, following the faint trail of residual energy left by the Vryn's escape device. Along the way, they encountered pockets of resistance, swarm drones infiltrating the station, cutting down anyone in their path. The humans fought back fiercely, using every bit of training and resourcefulness they possessed. This is insane, Elena panted as they ducked behind a bulkhead to avoid enemy fire. How did they get past the station's defenses? They must have had help, Ryan said darkly. Probably from inside. Finally, they reached the docking bay where the Vryn representative was boarding a sleek silver ship. Its design was unmistakably Vryn, sleek, angular, and humming with advanced technology. There he is, Elena shouted, raising her weapon. But, before they could act, the ship's engines roared to life, propelling it toward the exit. Ryan cursed under his breath and sprinted toward the nearest console, trying to override the bay's controls. We can't let him leave, Elena yelled, firing a few shots at the ship as it ascended. I'm working on it, Ryan snapped, his fingers flying over the keys. Just as the Vryn ship reached the hatch, Ryan managed to trigger the emergency lockdown. The massive doors began closing slowly, groaning under the strain. The Vryn ship accelerated, narrowly slipping through the gap before the doors sealed shut. He's gone, Elena said bitterly, lowering her weapon. For now, Ryan replied, his tone grim. But we know where he's headed, to the Swarm. They returned to the council chamber to find the situation deteriorating further. Fierce debates raged among the counselors, some calling for immediate retaliation against the Vryn, while others argued for caution. Zerkthal silenced them with a sharp command, his authority reasserting itself. The truth will come out, he declared. For now, we must focus on surviving this attack. Outside, the battle intensified. Swarm ships swarmed the station, their weapons tearing through its defenses. Humanity's fleet joined the fray, fighting alongside whatever council forces remained. On the bridge of the Eclipse, Ryan coordinated their efforts, barking orders to his crew. Target those fighters. Keep them off the station. Elena manned the communications console, relaying updates to the other ships. Captain, we're losing ground fast. If we don't turn this around soon, we will, Ryan interrupted, his voice unwavering. We don't have a choice. Amid the chaos, Daniel approached Ryan, his face pale but determined. We need to broadcast the evidence, he said urgently. Now, while everyone's watching. Ryan hesitated, weighing the risks. If we do this, there's no going back. I know, Daniel replied. But if we don't, the council won't. Believe us, and we'll lose everything. With a nod, Ryan gave the order. Activate the broadcast system. Let's show them the truth. Seconds later, the Eclipse transmitted the incriminating data across all frequencies. Holographic displays flickered to life throughout the station, showing undeniable proof of the Vrin's betrayal, the signal signature, the hidden message, and even footage of the Vrin representative fleeing. The reaction was immediate. Shock and outrage rippled through the council chamber as councilors turned on each other, demanding answers. Zerkthal's expression darkened, his slit-like eyes blazing with fury. The Vrin will answer for this, he vowed, his voice low and dangerous. Outside, the tide of battle began to shift. With the council united, at least temporarily, against a common enemy, their combined forces pushed back against the swarm. Humanity's battered ships fought valiantly, earning grudging respect from their newfound allies. As the dust settled, Ryan stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, staring out at the wreckage surrounding them. Elena joined him, her expression weary but resolute. We did it, she said softly. Didn't we? Ryan sighed, leaning against the railing, for now. But the war's far from over. Elena nodded, gazing out at the stars. Despite the devastation, there was a glimmer of hope. A fragile alliance forged in the fires of betrayal and survival. Whatever came next, humanity had proven they belonged among the stars, not just as survivors but as fighters willing to stand for what was right. The battle raged on, fierce and unrelenting. The swarm's ships swarmed like insects, their relentless attacks hammering against the station's weakened defenses. Humanity's fleet fought side by side with the Council's forces, their combined firepower pushing back against the tide of destruction. Yet despite their efforts, the enemy showed no signs of retreat. Every victory came at a cost, ships destroyed, lives lost, and resources dwindling. On the bridge of the Eclipse, Captain Ryan Carter barked orders with precision, his voice cutting through the chaos. Target those command ships. If we can take out their leaders, they'll fall apart. Lieutenant Elena Vega worked tirelessly at her console, coordinating with other ships in the fleet. Her fingers flew across the controls as she relayed critical information to Ryan. Their flanks are weak, she reported. We can break through if we hit them hard enough. Ryan nodded sharply. Tell the fleet to focus fire on Sector 3. We'll punch a hole and push forward. As the Eclipse surged into action, Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood nearby, watching the unfolding battle with a mixture of awe and dread. He wasn't a soldier, but he understood the stakes. This fight wasn't just about survival. It was about proving humanity's worth to the galaxy. They're holding their ground, Daniel murmured, more to himself than anyone else. For now, Ryan replied grimly, but the swarm isn't done yet. Outside, explosions lit up the void of space as ships clashed in a deadly dance. Plasma bolts streaked across the darkness, leaving trails of fire in their wake. The Vrin's betrayal had shaken the Council, but it had also united them, at least temporarily. Species that had once viewed humanity with suspicion now fought alongside them, their shared hatred of the swarm outweighing old prejudices. Still, Ryan knew they couldn't rely solely on alliances. They needed to strike at the heart of the problem, the swarm's leadership. Recovered data from the destroyed vessel had revealed the location of their command ship, a massive behemoth bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller escorts. Taking it down would be nearly impossible, but Ryan believed it was their only chance. Elena, he said, turning to her. I need a team to board that command ship. Can you assemble one? Elena hesitated, her eyes widening slightly. Are you serious? That thing's a fortress. I know, Ryan admitted. But if we disable it from the inside, we can cripple the entire fleet. And I'm leading the mission. Daniel stepped forward, his expression alarmed. You can't go alone, it's too dangerous. I'm not asking for permission, Ryan said firmly. This is what needs to be done. Besides, someone has to make sure the job gets finished. Elena clenched her jaw but didn't argue further. She knew better than to try changing Ryan's mind when he was determined. Instead, she focused on assembling the strike team, handpicking some of the best soldiers aboard the Eclipse. Within minutes, the team gathered in the hangar bay, clad in reinforced armor and armed to the teeth. Among them was Lieutenant Marcus Cole, a grizzled veteran known for his sharp instincts and steady aim. Beside him stood Ensign Claire Bennett, a young but resourceful engineer who specialized in sabotage. Together, they formed a small but capable unit ready to face whatever horrors awaited them aboard the swarm's command ship. As they prepared to launch, Elena approached Ryan, her expression conflicted. Be careful, she said quietly. If something happens to you, it won't, Ryan interrupted, offering her a reassuring smile. And even if it does, you'll keep things running here. You've got this. Elena nodded, swallowing her fear. Just come back alive, okay? I'll do my best, Ryan promised before climbing into the transport shuttle. The journey to the command ship was harrowing. Enemy fighters swarmed around them, forcing the pilots to perform evasive maneuvers as they closed the distance. When they finally reached the massive vessel, the team deployed grappling hooks, securing their shuttle to its hull. One by one, they climbed out onto the surface, their magnetic boots keeping them anchored as they made their way toward an access point. Inside, the environment was alien and hostile. The walls pulsed faintly, as though the ship itself were alive. Strange noises echoed through the corridors, clicks, hisses, and scuttling sounds that sent shivers down their spines. The air smelled acrid, laced with chemicals that burned their throats despite their helmets' filters. This place gives me the creeps, Marcus muttered, gripping his rifle tightly. Stay focused, Ryan ordered. We don't have time for distractions. They moved swiftly, following the schematics Elena had uploaded to their visors. Their objective was clear. Locate the ship's central core and plant explosive charges to disable it. Along the way, they encountered resistance, hordes of insectoid, drones that attacked without warning. The fighting was brutal, each skirmish leaving them battered but determined to press on. At one point, they stumbled upon a chamber filled with pods. Inside, grotesque creatures writhed and twitched, their bodies fused with machinery. What is this? Claire whispered, her voice trembling. It's how they reproduce, Ryan said grimly. Every pod probably contains another drone, or worse. Marcus raised his weapon instinctively. Should we destroy them? No, Ryan replied after a moment's hesitation. We don't have the time or ammo to waste. Let's keep moving. Finally, they reached the core, a towering structure pulsating with energy. Claire knelt beside it, pulling out a set of tools. Give me 5 minutes, she said, her hands working quickly. While she worked, Ryan and Marcus kept watch, fending off waves of enemies that tried to breach the room. The fighting was intense, testing their limits with every passing second. How much longer? Ryan demanded, firing a burst into an approaching drone. Almost there, Claire shouted back, her voice strained. Seconds later, the charges were set. Done, she cried, scrambling to her feet. Fall back, Ryan ordered. They retreated as fast as they could, the countdown ticking in their ears. Just as they reached the exit, the core detonated behind them, sending shockwaves rippling through the ship. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered wildly as systems began to fail. Outside, the effects of the explosion were immediate. The swarm's command ship faltered, its weapons going silent as it drifted lifelessly in space. Without their leader, the remaining swarm vessels scattered, retreating into the depths of the void. Back aboard the Eclipse, cheers erupted as the crew watched the enemy flee. Helena rushed to the hangar bay, relief washing over her as Ryan and his team stepped off the shuttle. You made it, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Barely, Ryan admitted, removing his helmet. His face was streaked with sweat and soot, but his eyes gleamed with triumph. Daniel joined them moments later, his expression a mix of gratitude and admiration. "You did it," he said simply. "You saved us all." Ryan shook his head. "Not just me. Everyone played a part. This wasn't just humanity's fight. It was everyone's." As the dust settled, the council convened once more to assess the aftermath. The evidence of the Vrin's betrayal had left a deep scar, but it had also forged a fragile unity among the remaining races. For the first time, humanity was seen not as reckless invaders, but as steadfast allies willing to fight for justice. Councillor Zerkthal addressed the assembly, his tone unusually solemn. "Today we witnessed both treachery and courage. The Vrin will answer for their crimes, but let us also remember those who stood with us in our darkest hour. Humanity has earned its place among the stars, not through words, but through deeds." As the session ended, Ryan, Elena, and Daniel stood together, gazing out at the battered but resolute fleet. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for now they had proven themselves. "We've still got a lot of work to do," Elena said, breaking the silence. Ryan nodded. "Yeah, but at least we've got a fighting chance." And with that, humanity prepared to move forward, to rebuild, to heal, and to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The aftermath of the battle left the Galactic Council station battered but standing. Smoke lingered in the corridors, and the hum of repair drones filled the air as crews worked tirelessly to patch up the damage. Outside, the void of space was littered with debris, pieces of ships, fragments of technology, and the silent remains of those who had fallen. It was a grim reminder of the cost of survival, but also a testament to the resilience of those who refused to give up. On board the Eclipse, Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, staring out at the wreckage. His uniform was torn, his face lined with exhaustion, but there was a quiet pride in his eyes. They had won, not just the battle, but a measure of respect from the Council. For the first time, humanity wasn't seen as an outsider or a threat. They were survivors, fighters, and allies. Lieutenant Elena Vega joined him, her posture relaxed for the first time in days. "We did it," she said softly, leaning against the railing beside him. "I didn't think we'd make it through." Ryan nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars. "Neither did I, but here we are." Elena glanced at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Do you think they'll trust us now? The Council, I mean." "They'll have to," Ryan replied. "We've proven we're not the problem. If anything, we're part of the solution." Ambassador Daniel Hayes entered the bridge moments later, his expression thoughtful. He carried a datapad in one hand, its screen glowing faintly. "The Council wants to meet again," he announced. "They're discussing next steps and what to do about the Vrin." Ryan frowned. "What does that mean for us?" "It means we're still in the game," Daniel said. "But this isn't over. The swarm might be gone for now, but they'll be back. And when they return, we need to be ready." Elena crossed her arms, her smile fading. "So we're staying here? With the Council?" "For now," Daniel replied. "But rebuilding won't happen overnight. Earth's colonies are in ruins, and we need resources to recover. The Council has agreed to provide some aid, at least until we can stand on our own again." Ryan turned away from the viewport, his expression hardening. "And what about the Vrin? Are they hunting us too?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "That's still unclear. Some counselors believe the Vrin may try to distance themselves from the swarm, while others think they'll double down on their plans. Either way, we need to stay vigilant." As the discussion continued, the crew of the Eclipse worked to prepare the ship for departure. Repairs were underway, supplies were being restocked, and morale was slowly improving. The victory had given them hope, a fragile but essential spark that kept them moving forward. Later that day, humanity's delegation returned to the council chamber for one final session. The atmosphere was different this time, less hostile, more reflective. Counselor Zerkthal presided over the meeting, his serpentine form coiled gracefully atop the platform. His slit-like eyes scanned the room, lingering briefly on Ryan, Elena, and Daniel before addressing the assembly. "Today marks a turning point," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We have faced betrayal within our ranks and an enemy unlike any other. Yet through unity and sacrifice we endured. Humanity has shown us that strength lies not only in power, but in resolve." His words drew murmurs of agreement from the counselors, though some remained skeptical. A representative from the aquatic race known as the Caliph spoke up, her voice melodic yet firm. "Humanity has earned our trust for now, but trust must be maintained. We will watch closely as they rebuild." Daniel stepped forward, his tone respectful but unwavering. "We understand your concerns, Counselor. Humanity is still learning its place in the galaxy. But know this, we came here seeking help, not dominance. We fought not just for ourselves, but for all who value peace and survival." The chamber fell silent as his words sank in. Several counselors exchanged glances, their expressions softening slightly. Even Zerkthal seemed impressed, though he kept his emotions carefully masked. When the session ended, the council issued a formal declaration. Humanity would be granted provisional membership within the Galactic Council, contingent upon their actions in the coming months. Aid would be provided to assist with Earth's recovery, and joint efforts would begin to track down the remaining swarm forces. As they left the chamber, Ryan let out a long breath. "Well, that could have gone worse," Elena chuckled. "Yeah, at least they didn't throw us out an airlock." Daniel smiled faintly, though his expression remained serious. "This is just the beginning. The real work starts now." Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew gathered in the mess hall for a rare moment of celebration. Drinks were shared, stories were told, and laughter echoed through the room. For the first time in weeks, the weight of their mission felt lighter. Ryan addressed the crew, raising a glass. "To everyone here, you've made history. Not just for humanity, but for the galaxy. We came here as strangers and we leave as allies. That's something worth fighting for." Cheers erupted, filling the room with warmth and camaraderie. Elena stood beside Ryan, her heart swelling with pride. Despite the losses and hardships, they had achieved something remarkable. Later that night, Ryan and Elena found themselves alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. The vastness of space stretched endlessly before them, dotted with points of light that hinted at countless worlds waiting to be explored. "What happens next?" Elena asked, breaking the silence. Ryan shrugged, his voice calm but resolute. "We go home, we rebuild, and when the swarm comes back, and they will, we'll be ready." Elena nodded, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Do you think we'll ever really belong out here, among all these alien races?" "We already do," Ryan replied. "Not because they accept us, but because we've earned it. We've shown them that humanity isn't just about survival. It's about standing together even when the odds are against us." Elena smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. "You're starting to sound like a diplomat." Ryan laughed softly. "Let's not get carried away." As the Eclipse prepared to depart the station, the crew worked with renewed energy. The journey home would be long, but they carried with them the knowledge that they had proven themselves, not just to the Council but to themselves. In the captain's chair, Ryan gave the order to set course for Earth. The engines roared to life, propelling the ship forward into the unknown. Behind them, the Council station grew smaller, its lights fading into the distance. Ahead lay the promise of a new dawn, a chance to rebuild, to heal, and to forge a brighter future. Elena took her place beside Ryan, her hands resting lightly on the console. "Think Earth will look the same when we get back?" "I doubt it," Ryan admitted. "But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Sometimes change is exactly what we need." As the Eclipse disappeared into the depths of space, its battered hull gleaming faintly in the starlight, humanity's story continued. They had faced destruction and despair, betrayal and loss. But they had emerged stronger, united by a shared purpose. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but humanity had proven one thing beyond doubt. They belonged among the stars, and no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together.